applaud at the end. Whatever. It was a great day today. I don't know how many of you were actually out there. I don't know what your history is with the buggy. This is a history of buggy, so I guess you're going to find out some things that maybe you didn't want to know or didn't know already, or thought you knew. You know, the one thing you're going to see me doing all the time is I time a lot. And I was very concerned because I was 2 weeks ago, and the buggies weren't rolling very fast. And today was very eye-opening. Beautiful day out. In the morning, not much wind. Later on, a little more wind in the chute. People don't recognize how much those impact the performance of some of these buggies. But we've had a wonderful year this year. Sweepstakes committee just done a marvelous job. And I'm a member of the Buggy Alumni Association. If you're not a member, I encourage you to join. These folks do a fantastic job. And for example, it was Saturday morning and I was rolling out of my driveway and it's 5:30. And I'm going to waste 3-4 hours if I have to come to Pittsburgh, turn around, and go back. They send me a text saying, "Buggy race is canceled." I can't begin to tell you how important that is when you're trying to do other things. You've got a wife that says, "And we have to be going to church," and things like that. So BAA, they get my applause. I got Dan out there, I've got Rob Sanborski. Those people just do awesome jobs. And I really appreciate being able to talk to you folks. I just finished talking over the pike here for about 2 hours, answering a lot of, I won't say stupid questions. There's no questions are stupid. But they're questions that people should have known if they've been listening for the past 50 years from me, right? So that's how long I've been involved. My first year was 1969. So that was my first year I was involved with High Cap Alpha Buggy, clear back then. And it's very addictive. You know, I can't tell you, I've never been on drugs. I'm not hooked on alcohol or anything like that. But I can tell you, I imagine if those things are addictive, I can understand why they aren't, because this bug thing is tough to shake. And, you know, I only missed 1 year, 22, I had my chest split open and had 6 bypasses. So this is a tremendous race. And the people who participate should be applauded for all the time and effort that they put in to put on such a special event for all of us. I'm going to just cover the events that cover 2026 and obviously the old ones, all right? So the first race post-World War II was Delta Tau Delta. And surprisingly, the next year they didn't win because the pork barrel won. You might have seen that in some of your history buggy sessions, but that was really a phenomenal event. Then DTD goes to win 4 out of 5 years in a row in 1951. And so what happens? ATO copies the Delta Tau Delta buggy. They go over to Akron. They purchase the 1947 wheels, of which this is one. This is what they call the gold wheel, 1947 Firestone wheel. And it was one of the most resilient wheels sold at the time. And they gave that to everyone who participated in the championship heats over at Akron. So there were a lot of those wheels floating around. ATO scurried up some money, purchased all those wheels, and they developed a dynasty of their own. They won 9 out of the next 10 years in buggy. So 1956 was a huge win for them. They set a new course record, 225.0, and they beat both Pike A and Pike B. If we had enough time, I'd show you that video because that's one from a helicopter showing the complete course of that race. 1966, no, excuse me, I'll get to 1961 first. ATO Andy 2, obviously built on campus by a mechanic named Andy, but they win the race that year. But SA introduces a brand new phenomenon called bike. And that bike finishes 3rd in its first year. And then it would end up finishing 2nd a number of other years. The advantage of that was its lightness. So you can imagine if you get a lightweight aluminum frame bicycle, how much it would weigh. And typically, some of those weights could be 12 pounds with the wheels. So now you've got a driver laying prone on that bike, rolls slowly compared to these high resilient wheels that are either heated or done something else with. And so our friends at ATO won 9 out of 10 years. The other thing they did is they protected, there used to be at the base of Hill 1, a light post. It had the only plug in campus that was external. They would protect that for a week before the race so they could heat up their wheels prior to taking them on the course. So as good as these wheels are, you can imagine what they would be like at a temperature around 150 to 175 degrees. They perform very well. So then, Beta, they discovered some secrets as well. They built lightweight buggies at Alcoa Aluminum, and they used them to win 3 years in a row. So they won from 1963, 64, 65, 64, 65, 66. And then Pica comes along, and the thing that happened in 1966, which changed the real course of the race, was there was an altercation between some fraternity members and some young ruffians because they would only practice at night. So they would take the buggies out and free roll at night with lanterns. They were intercepted by some young hooligans. They beat them up. The administration says, wait a second, we can't have any of this. We're going to preserve buggies, so we're going to have free rolls on Sunday morning. What does the free roll do? It allows other people to see how other people perform in person. So in 1967, that was the first year that you actually got people out there able to time people on the course, collect data, and see how other people perform in various types of work. And that's what really changed the dynamics of the game. Because again, they saw, okay, what's ATO doing? So soon other people start seeing, oh, they're rolling a little faster when it's warmer. So then they start experimenting. Because the people at Carnegie Mellon are very intuitive, have a great sense of yearning as to what it takes to win. And so people develop that. So Pi Alpha Alpha, again, I joined them in 1969. They had won in 1967 with a course record of 224.8. And then in 1968, they set another course record because they built a lighter buggy. And if any of you get a chance to visit Hunt Library, the Tiger Shark 2 is still hanging at the front of Hunt Library. And that's a 4-time winner of the race. And it set multiple records. So it set a record of 220.9. It set a record of 219.3 in 1975. So what changes the race next? Well, first I'm going to tell you about, 1971. So there's a famous photo that you're going to see later about a bathtub buggy painted just like the city police car of the time. And there was a Delta Tau Delta accident where they hit a tree on the back hills during push practice. And the driver was paralyzed. So that was the most tragic accident. Everybody always asks what was the most tragic accident. Well, I was in school at the time, and that was a very terrible thing that happened. And that's why they created the safety chairman position. Before then, safety was a joke. I mean, literally, you barely had to have brakes to participate in the race. Now you had to have brakes. I was the second, third safety chairman in 1973 and 74. We had to do cable tests in front of Baker Porter, and we had to do the downhill test that is still in use today. We also had to introduce Lexan windshields. So again, those windshields are supposed to be shatterproof. And anybody tells me the Lexan isn't shatterproof, I'm going to tell you they didn't do it right. Because I've used those in my business climate for decades to protect our grinders when grinder wheels explode, to protect our cab occupants. So let's see, where are we at? 1976. So we have a young lady here in the audience, and I can say young because I'm 75 years old. And Beth, could you stand up, please? So Beth Kovitz is the first female driver. It wasn't just Beth, it was also CIA. CIA showed how important it was for aerodynamics in this race. I mean, everybody had a clue. I mean, Pica tried their wheel covers in 1969, had some issues with that, and been off and on for years. But they covered all four of their wheels. And they had the streetcar and Peanut, and Black Magic was then the awesome buggy that they created. But those were fantastic things. The other thing that happened in '76 was a young lady by the name of Joan Bothwell. She was the first female chairman. And that was also so important because it allowed women to get intricately involved in the sport of buggy. And that's really changed the dynamics of the whole race. So what happened in 1981? Well, we raced the Sunday after Carnival in the afternoon, and you had people switching things up because people didn't want to run at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They wanted to run at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we had B teams switching with A teams and A teams with B teams. And what ended up happening was this Black Magic in 1981 set a new course record. First time an independent organization had ever won sweepstakes. First time a woman driver had won the men's race, which was phenomenal. And it was very high. And she was back a few years ago and just a phenomenal driver. But she had one of the fastest times. I think she ran you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a 2:10.5, 2:10.48, 2:10.5. Thanks, Lou. That's Lou and Frank of CIA fame. And again, they're to be applauded for not helping their team to a fantastic 2:10 finish today. Moral support, that's exactly what I'm doing. So again, 1986, Pi Kappa Alpha, we introduced a smaller wheel because we recognized the importance of wheel dynamics in the race. And so we introduced this wheel back in 1984. We actually had a driver by the name of Audrey Greenfield. And Audrey weighed 67 pounds. And our buggy and wheel combination was under 100 pounds. So that was pretty phenomenal. And people said, well, you didn't roll very fast. We put in a time of 209.5, and we did that because we were the lightest thing on the planet. And obviously, you get the buggy up the hill a lot faster. At Pica, we have a rule of thumb of how much weight is worth, how many pounds equals how many seconds. And I won't share that with you, but it's important. It's an important thought. And, for example, the buggies can't go much faster than they have. People have always asked me, how fast could the buggy go? We should be under 2 minutes, all right? You can go that fast, but the problem you have is you need to have the perfect team. They came very close with Malice a couple times. I mean, they got down to 2:02. 2:02.16 is a huge time. But still, they've never matched the fastest free roll ever, and that's Bonsai in 2011. That was one of the fastest free rolls ever recorded. But I'm skipping way ahead. Anyway, so Pica wins in 1990 on a Sunday afternoon with vengeance, or Sunday morning with vengeance, 2:07.05. And 91, Spirit's pissed, literally. They had won 3 years in a row. We won a race by 0.15 seconds. They thought they should have won. But we had a disposable buggy. Vengeance only ran 1 year, never ran again. And we came out with, I wish that we had Desperado. If any of you saw the buggy on the hill, we had Desperado and Lone Wolf. Desperado, that one buggy, ran a 208.5 with our B-team push team. So that was clear back in 1990. Let's see. So again, I'm going to jump ahead. Mad Dog, any of you folks know Andy Bordick? Andy Bordick built Mad Dog in the year 1996. They won 3 straight years after that. I have a philosophy about buggies. I'm not going to bore you with those details now, but 2 in the front is faster. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you that Mad Dog set the record for Pica, was our really first 3-wheel front-loading buggy, and we had the most successful trip around the sun since then because of that. And it all changed place when 2011. We built Raptor, so Raptor now has been running since 2011 off and on. This fast-rolling buggy, but it does not have the efficiency of the front-wheel drive buggies. Again, Malice won in 2016. 2021, that was odd. That was a controlled race post-COVID. SDC won. We didn't have it. Couldn't do anything to the wheels. Okay, which means you couldn't heat. In theory, you couldn't treat. I don't believe that rule was followed, but I wasn't there to interpret the rules. This year, I'm telling you what, I'm just telling you, I'm so surprised at what the outcomes were today. DG made a fantastic new buggy. You had other people out there rolling like heck today. I mean, I thought Sigma Nu rolled fantastically well. But then all of a sudden, I see CIA come up and go, holy yes. And I can tell you, on my time clip, CIA had fastest time of the day. And people are going to say, well, no, they didn't. And I'm going to tell you, I'm just telling you what my time is. And it was not close. So when I tell you it's not close, that means if I'm within a couple hundredths of a second, that's my stopwatch accuracy. This is by over a couple tenths of a second. I don't mess up like that. So we're going to go right on and get through this. Those are pictures of old buggies. For those of you who haven't seen the race before, that's what the course actually looks like from an overhead view. 35 miles an hour. Ben Brown actually got at least one buggy today going 37 miles an hour, which is pretty phenomenal. I always list the history of spring carnival participants. I've got 2026. I only have 2025 here, sorry, my error. But again, great group of people. You can't do it without the volunteers, especially as well organized as, well as put together as today's calendar was. The thing that really surprised me is people always complain about them not knowing what the time was. There was a time clock right there over the starter's head saying when 2 minutes was. How can you miss that? And it counts down, and they're given the warning. 1 minute left, so you can't get your wheels on? Unbelievable. I apologize. Thank goodness you gave me the plug. So SDC won last year in the women's race. Oops. This is the group of folks that we have. Come on, I've got it timed on this. So those are the races before World War II. Kappa Sig won 12 times, Beta won 4 times. This is the men's heats. Come on. So Pike is winningest organization with 27 wins. I keep track of a lot of data, a lot of stuff. And I keep track of when roads are paved, what the wind is, temperature. So if you looked at my notebook right now and you looked up a date, you would see what the temperature was, what the wind was. I usually have a picture in my phone about what it is. And it shows you the progress in how things happen through the history of buggy. And I take the top 6 times to avoid any, scattering data. And this is a progression of men's, women's times, and I've included all gender. They've only been involved 3 years. So you can see 2021, what the times were, and then we returned to normal races. They were better, but they still weren't perfect because there was a lot of inherent knowledge lost during the COVID years. I could try to combine and show the differences in the two times between 23 and 24. I actually have some buggy books here, if somebody'd like to take a look at them from last year. The best buggy book in terms of cover was the 2013 and 14. I have that there. Ann Wichner was a university advisor for 23 years, Lifetime Chairman's Choice Award. Gino Constantino, I don't know if his son's here. If his son's here.
I'm here.
You're, yeah, I'm sorry.
My son was
One of the best chairmen ever known. It's right there, Gino Constantino. That's what the award is named after. It's Cosentino Cup. I'm sure I mispronounced that, but whatever.
I've become more humble since that.
That's in the presence of God, I understand.
8, 7,
So I'm just going to show you a quick clip because
5,
I don't know if you've seen this before.
3, 2, 1.
I'm showing you STC because they were way behind by over 2 seconds.
STC
So I'm going to show you anything is possible.
history if they're able to get first
They're going
place
to come
here
back
today.
and they're going to post a really
Pushing
great
in that
time.
one, Mike and B trying desperately to catch up, but it looks like there's getting to be a slight bit of separation here from this STC team. They're going to make the transition at about the same time right here. And just want to be close. It's going to be close to the veteran fourth-year pusher for
See that change and how far ahead they were?
Ika B just behind right there. Bain gonna try and make some separation there in the free roll. SDCA able to maintain a little bit of a lead in that that
Now look at
but
that.
it's still
The Pika time of 2:14.86 is faster than their 18th today.
Well done.
That's a
Let's see what they
beat
can shave off and shoot as well. Shoot.
2019.
52 seconds right there at the stop sign. Ika B 54 and a half.
Yeah, they were sandbagging. Yeah. Rolling that smoothly, both buggies to the upper transition. As you see, taking the chute flag. Very smooth turn. Nice tween line. Tween. Little slide, the second little slide, little micro slide, very notchy. Let's say a 3 notcher. There you go, even.
You see here, Kevin Sanchez, how he's able to pick it up. Really nice hill 3 pickup right there. Kind of full momentum right there. Getting with that buggy. 1, 2, 3 bumps. And a push off right there to Danny Vitova.
Yeah, they're pulling away. They pulled away through the roll here, just adding on.
Yeah, that's an 18 because of B team, right? That's what you're
Right here. Looking for that 4-5 transition here. Want to have a good push. Want to cut some seconds off from the previous day. He's going to be taking out about
Change to 146.
And this is going to close SDCA. Coming here, flying towards that finish line. Brandon Foster right here. Ton of speed, ton of momentum. We're just crossing over 2 seconds right here. We're trying to see what can they cut off from their day before. A 2:05, a 2:06, a 2:06.81, the unofficial time right there. We'll look to get the official. Meanwhile, Hiker B, 2:12, 2:13. Hand on there at a 2:15.07. Really nice right there from Hiker B as well.
And that's Brian. I think Brian's up in the audience somewhere. He's our expert on buggy history. If you ever want to read something, go to Buggy Alumni Association website and check out 100 years of buggy history. I don't know when he's going to finish updating the recent years, but maybe he already has and I've missed it. But it's a fantastic read. He's gone into such detail and found out so many things that we're missing in our history. And then Frank and Lou are down here in the front. But that's the number of times the CIA has won. Okay, so where did the race begin? So I'm going way back in time. Competition began in 1920. Had to have 4 wheels. had to change the back wheels halfway down the course. Oh, I know. But you only had 2 people participating. So you could change off your driver and your pusher, but they both had to have, only one person could have 2 feet on the ground except when they changed the wheels. And the winner was Todd Gamma Phi. And again, Jeremy Tuttle and Brian picked up that. That had been missing for years. First design, Iota Sigma Delta wins the race. DU Fish, you're going to see a picture of that. Cars lined up. There were 18 cars at the starting line. So I'm going to show you a picture of that in a little bit. 1922, SAE and Pike tie. There was a conglomeration of people at the finish line. Couldn't tell who was who, so they awarded them a tie. And that was actually the female sorority Alpha Kappa Psi entered the race. Claimed they didn't finish the race, but they did enter. So finally, 1925, they split the buggy race up into heats. It was still sweepstakes at the time, 19 split into 4 heats. I'm going to show you a video in 1930 in just a minute. First time for prelims on Friday was in 1926. 5th pusher was added in 1927. In 1928, they completed Fruit Street, and so now it completes the entire race the way it's meant to be today. Before, it would cut back in front of Baker Porter and then come down and finish in front of Fine Arts. So it completed that zigzag loop, and it wasn't exactly the same distance as it is today. So we're running a much shorter race than they did back when men were. And then again, 1929, President Baker cancels Carnival, and they had to hold the buggy races on 2 weekends. So that's what the buggies look like on the first day. I mean, you got steel wheels, you got, I don't know, wheelbarrows, who knows, chariots. But that's the DU Fish. That's the pirate ship. And then that's the two-wheel trolley. I don't know if you can notice, but this is the pirate ship falling over. And that's why they decided that you couldn't just have these characters participating in design. You need to have legitimate buggies and then have them participate in those. So that's a picture. Kathy Dax gave you this picture from SAE. That was one of their winning buggies. That's an original photo that was in the archives from 1923 Beta Theta Pi. Kappa Sigma buggy. Again, 1922, last woman's entry until 1979. And we're going to show you this one. Brian sent me this in the fall. That's the 1930 finals race. Notice there's no lines separating. Watch the dogs. Oops, there's none. Carnage to race. This is a photo from John Langford. So they started having a lane, but not necessarily multiple lanes. So they separated the center line of the course. 1949, Delta Tau Delta won 5 years in a row. So George Bach, who actually built that buggy, he finished 9th at the All-American Soapbox Derby. He brought the buggy back to campus in 2008. He actually stayed with me at my house out in Latrobe. And Melissa Lee Bruner, who won that year with a 204.35 in Chimera, she actually got in their buggy. But one of the cool things about that, he had his original champions. And that's what they actually gave the drivers who participated at Soapbox Derby. They gave them wheels that said Firestone Champions on the OD of the wheel. That's the picture of the Delts at that time. George Hooks. That's George Bach right there. So he looked old back then, but he served in Patton's. Not Patton. Yeah. No. I'll get it right now. MacArthur in the Philippines. So 1950, as soon as he started winning, everybody copied the style. That's the pica buggy of the time. And again, one of the cool things about this is they still had these bumps, and they had the blinker in the middle of the road, so you had to go around the blinker. So this is the oldest color video I have. You can tell it's colors because the green leaves and the uncharacteristic non-black color of the pipe. So that's the early photo on Hill 1. I have this album, usually I throw that around, but when ATO lost their location on campus here, I contacted Bob Kimakata, and Peter Rapp stepped in and helped me gain people's confidence and trust, and they explained the history of how ATO developed their technology. A very interesting story in this book that I have here that was given to me by Del Ritchie. He was back for homecoming with his wife Joanne, who was also Kappa Alpha Theta from 1958. And wonderful. And you can see they were doing some cool things. I don't know if you can tell from this photo, but oops. So right here, you see they trimmed down their wheels. So they actually did some grinding there to make sure that they didn't tear them apart when they went around the turn. That's Del Ritchie pushing Hill 2. And this is Del over here. Not a very big fella, very powerful. So Ron Pellman, they actually built a wheel testing device back in the early 50s. And so they tested the run out of every wheel that they had. That was the device that they made. Ron Pellman takes this device and submits it as an engineering award. He won the Pittsburgh Engineering Award in 1963 for something that was created like in 1954-55. It's amazing. That's the bike. So this appeared in National Geographic. They did a special on Pittsburgh, some phenomenal technology that was available in Pittsburgh at the time. That was a three-wheeled buggy that they had in 1965. That's Beta's polished. I already alluded to the fact that the buggy was made at Alcoa. Interesting story, I was safety chair. I'm taking a tour of Alcoa my senior year, which was 1974. They asked me what was my involvement. I said, buggy safety chair. They said, well, you know, we built the 825 out here. We did all the welding. I said, yeah, okay, that's cool. Look at the fall. I don't know if you can see that. So the surprising thing was, that heat was run the same 2 days in a row. And the reason why it was because those were the top three teams since the 825 spun out around the turn in '69. And so the same heat was the finals heat. At that time, only 1, 2, 3 could compete for the championship. 4, 5, 6 could only compete for consolation prizes. So they were able to run their A pushers because they were alternates on their B buggy. And so Beta ended up winning the race, and primarily because this point right here, Joe Malaysia fell. Very terrible accident. This is one of the coolest buggies, and that's what really gave us the prompt as to why we should be running three-wheel buggies. It took a lot of people to adapt to that. Pica was really the first. I mean, Pi Lambda Phi had a three-wheel buggy in the late 70s. But when we put our buggy Bullet in 1981, that's really changed the dynamics of the race. This is 1970 race. So Mike Foda's out here. Mike Foda pulled his hamstring, a track meet. Mike would ever run track at Buggy weekend. So he pulled his hamstring. Barry Benjamin pushing everything, pushing till one. We passed Beta in return for the blue buggy. That's Pike. And then Dale Beard and Ken Jones take it up the back hill. So that's the buggy that only weighed 12 pounds. That's a Taw Delta 5 buggy. And you can see how small it was. That was the driver. Now, the driver's a little hefty compared to some of the drivers of today, but still, when you get something weighing that light and with good rolling resistance, like today, if we allowed bikes, we probably wouldn't allow that back wheel to be fair, just simply because of tipping reasons. So this is from the 1971 races. That's Mike Foda shoving off to Dan Mayer on the first day. Mike was, so that buggy, the Python, that's Jay Simmons driving, weighed roughly 80 pounds with wheels. Jay weighed another 120 pounds. He had 200 pounds of mass getting pushed up there. So you can see why Taw Delta 5 with a bike that only weighed 15 pounds, 14 pounds with a driver that weighed 120 pounds. That's the bathtub buggy. That was the first time we ever had a race from a buggy viewpoint around the course in a race. So that was 1971. We have that. I think, Brian, you have that being shown on video for the Buggy Alumni Association site. I know I have it in my possession. So 1974, that was my senior year. And Sigma Nu crushed the opposition. They had a 2:21 first day and they set a record. 1975, Pica came back. That's Petey Cullen on Hill 1. Bob Cazzaro. Dave Fry shoving off to Mark Vrandrick to Jay Harper. They were in a 2:19.3 back in 1975. That's the team. That was a new course record. So we had a debate about this today. I don't know who's here from Pike at the time, but so that's Pike's B team and Beta's A team. And so that's the S2 and that's 825 for the yellow pig. So the advantage was we were running these, we had to do something to compete with Beta because they were running those pneumatics. We got spun aluminum wheels. And so that's what was on that buggy right there. And that's why they were able to keep pace with the Betas going downhill, and then why our B team was fairly competitive uphill. And then second day, we beat them over the hill and beat them up the back hills with Tom Binney bringing it home on Hill 5. So 1977, I'm in the lead car. I think, Lou, you were in the follow car. But anyway, our friends, Beta Theta Pi, eating their wheels. Guy's not wearing any gloves up his sleeve. So he touches the wheel. They drop the buggy from like this height. The buggy bounces. Eddie Zielinski pops up, ticked off about the whole situation. And so they didn't get a chance to run. Back then, there were no second chances, right? You didn't get a chance. So if you don't make it, you get DQ'd. We allow them to run for design. At that time, you had to finish with a time in the top half in order to qualify for design. So they sat out there for 5 minutes, ran a 2:18.1.
Oh,
Pica had just set the record 2:17.8, doing everything they could to win. And so obviously that buggy might have won the race. But sometimes, you know, good Lord isn't looking out for you. Sometimes he is. You need to make sure that you don't do anything to piss people off. So this is the race the next day. This is courtesy of Luke Conley. This is his video. On the hillside. That's Beta and Sigma Nu neck and neck. say something?
Yes, do you
But
realize
this
we
time
can't
it's three.
hear you, what you're saying, when the video has audio playing?
Okay,
All right?
sometimes it's not important to hear me.
Turn off.
I just keep rambling regardless.
I'm gonna turn off your computer.
Gotcha, I can turn off the. Okay, so again, one of the cool things that we used to do when we owned a fraternity house, which we aren't going to own after this year again, but we took pictures every year. That's one of the things I encourage universities to do. I would always like them to get a group photo of the winning organization at the end of the race. Right? What's so difficult about this? I'm not understanding. That ought to be a requirement. For you to win the race, you have to show up for a group photo. Okay, you don't want to win the race? I get it. Nice time. We used to take porch pictures where we get everybody who participated in the event show up and get your picture taken. Again, I've got one from almost every year. Believe me, I treasure those. So SWE, Society for Women Engineers, enters in 1979. So that was the first time we actually had individual races. There were only 4 buggies that participated. Pi Lambda Phi, Blue Dolphin, again, 3-wheeler. So I'm going to show you this one. I know we're running out of time. I'm going to rush through this. I have this muted right now. I'm going to turn it on in just a second. So that's the preliminary run before the most devastating wreck I've ever seen in the race. I think I would say that. So Steve Farrell is Pica's Bill 3 pusher. They've got a very fast, we have very fast. We're not as fast as CIA, but CIA's wheels are delaminated. I'm going to use that word.
The car coming by.
So here comes the buggy.
I got it. Here we go. These cars.
And Lou's in the follow car, and I'm in the lead car. So you can imagine a buggy hitting another buggy going 30 miles an hour. Right? It's going at least 30 miles a minute. And you can see what happened. You can see the bottom down here. That's the Lexan windshield. That went right to within inches of the driver's face. And that's why we insist that you have something to protect your driver. And if you have a wheel, and that's another reason why I don't like 3-wheeled buggies, it says with a standard trike, it says you have to have a protective barrier between that wheel and the driver's face. I'm ex-safe, right? So I'm just telling you, that device has to be substantial. And again, I don't want to cast any dispersions on the organizations around here, but there's some that aren't meeting the letter of the law from what I saw it designed yesterday. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So Beta won in 1979. That was the last time they ever won a race. 1980, last male driver. Now, if Sigma Nu wins, they have a male driver. People understand it? Do you know that Sigma Nu's running with a male driver? This could be groundbreaking if he would win. Could you imagine the trend going back? No.
Just to point out, there was Dave Winters
drove Theta's Eye in 82 and 83 as well.
But he didn't win.
No.
There's a last winner.
He was the last male driver.
Well, no, there have been some other male drivers.
That's,
Oh, yeah.
So on today.
So this is the Silver Bullet. That's a three-wheeler. Mark Buffalini, who was the last male driver, also drove. Mark here?
He's not here now, but he's at Carnival.
Okay. So Mark's at Carnival, and him and his daughter are here. But we had all three wheels. The problem was the wheels were only 12 inches apart. So you can imagine a little tipsy. And she tipped, as you can see, lower right-hand corner. 1981, that's the race that we ran the weekend after Spring Carnival. And Sigma Nu set a time 2:14.2 before, and Pike had set the record the year before at 2:15.4. So they set that time, and then CIA ran their epic run of 2:10.5. So again, that's the group. Wonderful team. Fantastic young lady who won the race. And that was just a truly, that was an earth-shattering achievement. 1982 turned out to be a good year. That's a little funny, because Sigma Nu got their wheels from Goodyear at the time. The president of Goodyear happened to be a Sigma Nu, who made some wheels for them. Then 1983, Ann Wichner was able to get wheels for every organization on campus. So anybody who wanted Goodyear wheels would get Goodyear wheels. But they won in 82, and they also won in 1985. 1983 is the classic. It's another Piker rule. We switched our A and B teams completely because we wanted to go head-to-head against Beta Theta Pi. Big mistake. The buggies collided in the turn. Fortunately, we had an extremely tolerant sweepstakes committee, and they agreed to allow the buggies to run separate. So Piker runs first. There's another story behind that one, but Piker runs first. If Steve Shurness was here, I would embarrass him even more than I'm going to now. But he's in the men's room, if you've ever seen, which is the one with Jackie Gleason in the restroom. He comes running out of their Cannonball Run. So anyway, the buggy's already around the turn, and he's running out of the doors at Bakerport right there. Catches the buggy. Rich Connors is on hill 4, runs up to catch the buggy on 4, exchanges to Billy Gens, and then they set a record at 2:09 flat. And coincidentally, Beta runs at 2:10 flat, Sigma Nu runs at 2:11. Dropping push bars. So back then there was no rule that had to fall within the confines of the structure of the buggy. So the buggy, the push bar just fell down, straight down. And the problem with that is it creates another dynamic as it goes around the turn. You've got extra weight back there. And we did a little more slide than we need to. So this young lady right here was the 67-pound wonder. And this young girl only weighed 82 pounds. All these other people were Pica drivers. So you can see. I'm just saying, you might be able to see why it might be advantageous. I already told you we have a rule for how much time we can pick up if we can eliminate weight. So Dave Fiedler going 135 in 1979, maybe not a good thing for us, right? So again, 1985. So Spirit, again, they crashed the scene in 1985. They immediately started showing their dominance. Finished 4th in 1986, and then they won 87, 88, 89, skipped the year, then went 91, 92, 93. And then they also won in 87 and 97 and 98. King Ider briefly held the course record in 1988, 208.5. Again, we have a little time, so I'm going to show you this one. This is one of the last two wheelers. One of the last two wheelers. So watch the exchange. So I actually worked with Todd Tomczyk, who's going to push off for Hill 2 on this horn screamer. And you can see, look at the buggy just, it's extremely, well, let's say it's unstable. That would be a polite word for it. But it's only rolling on two wheels. And it somehow manages to pass phi cap on the inside. I have many pictures of this buggy wiping out and running into hay bales. This was not one of those occasions. So people knew it was in trouble because this buggy turned in with a beat push team of 222.5. But watch how close this buggy is. Can you imagine if that buggy goes the other way, flips spectator? Again, nice roll up. You're going to get to see King Ider next, and you're going to get to see an entirely different machine run. And that machine was so crisp and phenomenal. And again, they did not have their ideal push team. They had a good push team, but I guarantee if they would have had spirit on their push team, that team might have been down to, I don't know, 2 or 3. I know you think I'm exaggerating, but that's how good the spirit was at the time, and how heavy they were. So this is King Ider, again in lane 3. That would be this outside lane right here. This lane. Nope. Notice it has training wheels that go down. They're supposed to help. Not really too much. Now he's got to remember to extract them because he doesn't want to have them engaged when they tip. Now watch him shove off this buggy. So this time in 1986, Pike had set the record of 208.67. They are going to turn in a time of 208.5. So I've been taking times, and when I say I mean the collectively, we, Pike Alpha Alpha, have been taking time since 1970. Every free roll we can, every full course that we can, everything. This time, from where I start my location to where I finish, was the fastest time for almost 50 years. 40 years for sure. But see how high that buggy carries? And you might say, oh, they were pacing. Maybe they were. But they weren't disqualified. They got a 208.5. It was pretty phenomenal. The next day they wrecked. They raced against Beta. B got too psyched up, overshoved the buggy. You saw what the buggy did previously. It falls over. So to make matters worse, the buggy gets stolen over the summer. So we on the committee, Lou's on the committee, I forget all the members that were on the committee, but the gentleman from TX was on the committee, a member from Sigma Nu was on the committee, Sanford Rivers was on the committee, And we rewrote the whole rules. We offered to rebuild the buggy for them, and they chose not to. Because they would have been grandfathered for only 1 year for the driver that existed. They didn't want to do that. But the university offered to rebuild it for them. So that was time 206.2 in 1988. And that was the best time, surprisingly, until 2008. Pretty amazing how those numbers work out today. Quantum Leap was the buggy, but their women dominated well before them. The women won in 86 and 87. Clearly, they had fantastic athletes, and they built to the buggy. Pica won in 1990. Spirit came back. Andy Bordick built. This toad in the green is me. Spirit won, let's see, Zeus. So if anybody wants my email address, believe it or not, I go by the name of Tom, but my first name is William. So it's William Wood 206.71. There's no point. I left out the point because people don't understand points. So that's my handle because that was the first time Pike ever beat 207. Then Fringe, they came up with these. Oh, I'm not sure it was their introduction, but certainly they capitalized on the most. This is one of the original zoos. So this is a very good zoo. I can tell you that. I have a number of these good zoos, but that's a good one. And if any of you are interested, the plastic ones are all good zoos. So if you have any plastic ones, those are all good zoos. And I think I can give them to what? Okay, we're about done. I know you're tired. But these are cool things that have happened in the past. And if you haven't paid any attention to what Brian's been doing up there, he's been posting some, I'm assuming it's him, beautiful videos of what actually is going on. So that's Fringe. Is that basket case? And anyway,
Blackjack.
Blackjack, sorry, thank you. Appreciate that, I'll have to correct it. So that's Beta A against Fringe C. Now this young man on Hill 5, he will do this more than once in his life. So Beta's pretty quick. That pusher will end up pushing for STC later on in his life.
He went through the transfer window.
Hold on.
And he missed. You have to have his hand up the car when the nose from. So this is Sigma Nu, right? Everybody knows Sigma Nu rolls fast. He's not going to catch that bucket. Not his wildest dreams. Okay, this is, I'm standing on the hill. That is Fringe. They're going to run a 208.
Behind it, it looks like Fringe is approaching the finish line. Be sure to get out of the way of the finish. And they are going to cross the line with a time of about 2 minutes and 8 seconds. So that should win the race.
Again, that should win the race. You know, you hate to make fun of other people's troubles, but Pica won. We ended up winning 7 years in a row because of that. Because of that one, we did not even close, didn't deserve to win. They were the superior team by far.
She's looking at turn.
We had comments about this.
That's scary to watch.
Jeremy's not there, but Jeremy's amazing. We had discussions about this earlier in the week.
Obstacle.
And this was our infamous Brimstone. This is Pike Half Alpha. Now watch what happens here. Spirit goes, could have blindsided her, but no, she. Now watch this. This is retractable push bar. Sometimes retractable push bars are not a good idea. That's right, Pica got rid of theirs. Instantly. Cost us a race. You knew that was going to happen. Okay. Here's another angle of that. So that's SDC screaming through the chute. That's pretty cool, right? You'd like to see that one. I can't even imagine going that fast going just flying. So this is one of the coolest. So this is.
Big shot, L5. You're chasing after it, you give it a big two-handed.
So the next day, he pushes their B team, and this is where he finishes against Pica B, because he was afraid to shove the buggy too far in back.
Wow.
Seriously. He was a hell of a good pusher. He ended up pushing Hill 2 for one of the STC winning teams. So 2008 was a great year. The record was actually broken 4 times. So the 206.2 was broken 4 times over that weekend. Unfortunately, Pica, again, depending on which team or not, they were happy to get their 204.35. And then SDC set the new record, 203.26. And SDC women. 2010 was a very controversial year. SDC was disqualified for having propane in their tent. Again, you've got, I don't know if I can show you this.
A at a 232. 5, 4, 3.
I know you folks have to be somewhere, and you're running a little over, and I apologize. We're almost done. This is the fastest roll we
Here we are,
have.
they're off. Fringe feels like it.
Just the roll.
Here. Let's see if they can do it. They're
Through my
getting
split.
right there. You know what?
Through my split, we've actually got times for SDC to be much faster, but this is from the top of the hill where we normally take times from, which is the crosswalk, cross country, all the way around to the bottom.
This time.
But you can see how. Now, if he hadn't grabbed the sign the right way, he could have been disqualified if it interfered with the other. So again, fantastic team. Winkleman, Wojno, Acevedo, happened. Obedian, thank you. Velez and Rebecca Drag. Did you can see the entry? Beautiful timing. So they were actually ahead of the Pica and SDC records, but they came up a little bit short of that.
See, just went out in front. It was a controlled stop. It wasn't as
So
normal.
again, they have finished at 205.08, which is nothing to sneeze at. That is a phenomenon. This 5 was Mike was very fast. I don't know what you guys got him times, if any of you did, but just like, he was incredible. That was a wheel delamination. Here, Paduno actually attended Spring Carnival. 2014, he was Grand Marshal.
Was that 27?
Wait, no.
So they have wheels going everywhere. I don't know how many Sigma Nu got.
Also the fastest stop sign we've seen today.
Today, right?
We saw an SCC time of about 53 seconds for the stop sign. We're looking at a 51 for Pike.
She's the Bob said, we'll see what she does right here.
Things going pretty much their way. Nice turn right. Oh, wide.
You know what? I didn't see a shoot flag for her. I think she guessed where to turn and she didn't know where to go.
Yeah, I think that was the reaction of, that's absolutely.
So you can see wheels all over the place. Everybody likes that.
Here we come into the shoot. This might be a little bit of excitement here. See the flag?
And then he got his hand on it. DQ.
That's a DQ. So fun.
Sorry.
So I actually had a pusher tell me, as long as I have my hand on the push bar when I cross the line. No, that's not how it works. So please explain that to the Piker pushers. So here's one that cost STC. There's a couple more funny ones. We're picking on everybody. Now watch this one. I don't know if you can see, but this wheel heading in this direction. It's going to come all the way up here. See that wheel still coming down? So it made the trip, made the 3-4 exchange. So again, this is next day.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's not, that was cool.
Now they have to make it also. Okay, great.
So some things that unique happen in free roll. I happened to be here when this young lady decided she was going to stop.
Oh.
She was unsure what to do. Because when you yell at people, they just go, it's like deer in the headlight. Almost down. So I like to take pictures of folks. Showcase design in 2019. 2019 was also the Fringe's 50th year. And the trivia question for everybody who thinks they know, what was Fringe's original name in 1960? I know some of you know that. Anybody want to shout it out?
International Club.
International Club is correct. And so thank you very much. This is the end. You can come see anything of interest to you. But these are all the people who I really appreciate.
I'm just the first thing I'm going to go on.
Vinny and